could you tell us your name and your organization before you phrase your question?
My name is John Batchelor. I used to be with Empire State Development, and I'm retired. First of all, I'd like to say that this was a useful and I thought a well-informed discussion this morning. I wanted to comment a little bit on fracking because although I agree with the conclusions that most of the panelists, all the panelists reached, which is that it would be beneficial for New York State, particularly for the southern tier, I am concerned about kind of the overselling. And I think particularly in Mrs. Furchtgott-Roth's paper, there's a potential for overselling the technology because in the methodology of the paper, each county is treated as an equal unit of analysis. And so because fracking happens to take place in rural counties primarily with small populations, it looks like it has a big impact, and it does have a big impact in those small counties. But if it's placed in large counties like Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, it would look a lot smaller simply because the economic activity would be submerged.
For the panel, do you have a question?
I have a comment, which I was trying to make, which is simply that I think, and maybe you should respond to that you need to understand that while it creates economic activity, it looks bigger in smaller towns. Is that, you disagree?
Well, I think overall, for New York State as a whole, if you look at that group of counties as a whole, if you take the average number of wells per county that there were in Pennsylvania, 52 wells per county, you get a difference over a 4-year period of 5.5 billion. And you're right, if it's divided into small counties on a per capita basis, yes, that makes those numbers look larger. But on the other hand, if you take it as an aggregate, I think it's still a significant number. I think it's useful because it enables counties just to have an idea of where they might go if they went in that direction. Also, what I think is particularly interesting is the progression from smaller number of wells to larger number of wells. That the ones who had between 200 and 400 wells showed a much larger gain in employment. And I think that that's very significant also, not just from employment in hydrofracturing, but this includes employment of other activities such as restaurants, people going out shopping, just additional economic activity. So as an economist, I would be the first to say that my estimates are imprecise, but they provide a general guide. But I think that that general guide is useful. So I do agree with your comment, and thanks for making it.
Okay, we probably have time for just 1 or 2 more questions. We've got just a few more minutes. If you could ask very quickly your name and where you're from.
My name is Marlon Anderson. I'm currently running for mayor of the city of Albany in 2013 election cycle. I have a 2-pronged question. One, on the hydrofracking issue, Ms. Roth. I've been around the issue. I've been around with the, as you say, the activists and the government, and I don't envy the government has having to make a decision. But my question is, part of the issue with hydrofracking has been the conflicting opinions. You know, they say the benefits of it, it'll create jobs and economic benefits, but on the environmental side, they say it'll create catastrophic environmental damage. My question for you is, has there been any cooperative examination and study of hydrofracking between the environmentalists and the people advocating for hydrofracking to conclusively prove that hydrofracking can be done with very limited damage to the environment? And my second part of the question goes to my soon-to-be colleague, Mayor Hogan. With any voters in Albany, again, I intend to be his soon-to-be colleague. I want to salute you for stating that we need a Marshall Plan to address jobs in upstate New York, because we do need a conclusive, virtually military-style approach to create jobs and solicit business in upstate New York. But my question for you, as a leader of upstate New York, do you feel that leadership on engaging and creating and addressing the upstate jobs crisis has been lacking among upstate leaders in New York? So I guess if you could answer first and then as the mayor would.
Well, thanks very much for that excellent question, and I wish you very good luck in your race for mayor of Albany. The Environmental Protection Agency has been looking, I might say desperately, for evidence of harm of hydrofracturing, and it has not managed to find it. I can assure you that if EPA had found damage from hydrofracturing, they would have prohibited it right there. As a result, they're taking lengthy time to come out with regulations. Different states have their own regulations on hydrofracturing. The shale rock is so far below the aquifer that damage to water so far has not been found. Now, that having been said, there can always be accidents. There can be accidents when you drive in your vehicle or when I drive in my vehicle. Anything has the potential for an accident. But the basic process of hydrofracturing, like the basic process of driving, there is nothing inherently unsafe about it. And as for a Marshall Plan, I would like to say that we have many, many companies who want to do business in New York State in this area, and more who would be attracted by cheap energy. So rather than a government-led Marshall Plan, I would suggest that regulations be changed to allow private companies who want to come and invest to do that, because that'll be far less expensive to the taxpayer. When you're mayor of Albany, you'll have companies just knocking at your doors if hydrofracturing was allowed. And you know, this is what you want. You want them to be taking you out to lunch. You want to be saying, yes, you can have this part of the action, you can have that part of the action. Right now, you can't do that.
I think that, and to your question directed to me, I think there's been many, many good intentions, but you know, they say the road to hell is paved with a lot of good intentions. And there has never really been a concerted policy directed to upstate New York. And I've always had this complaint, and through Republican, Democrat, whoever, is that a lot of our leaders from Albany and New York City, legislative leaders, feel that upstate New York consists of the thruway corridor only. They ignore completely what's south of the thruway and what's north of the thruway. They think if they can drive from Albany to Rome, Utica, Syracuse, Rochester, Buffalo, and dispense economic development aid and money, that they've solved the problem upstate. And that is not the problem upstate. You just can't throw money at it. And when I'm talking about a Marshall Plan, I wasn't talking about government assistance. With all due respect, I'm talking about coming together of professionals, economic development professionals, people in local government, and people in business and industry to develop a plan and to try to implement that plan. So I've heard about Route 17, I-86, that was going to solve, there's going to be the toll-free highway across the southern tier. It was going to generate all kinds of jobs and employment. The ceramics corridor, which the state threw a lot of money into, a center of excellence, Harvard University, they paid off the debt to an incubator facility. Not one job has ever been produced from that ceramics corridor, and that's 20 years ago when that was started, and promoted as the next Silicon Valley. You know, just like I said, it's throwing macaroni at a refrigerator hoping something will stick. We need more than that. We deserve more than that. But again, a lot of the blame lies on us who live upstate because of our inability to come together and to work for the benefit of each other, learned helplessness.
I think we have one last question.
Jim Quigley, supervisor of the town of Ulster, the town that surrounds Kingston and is in a death knell because of the closing of the IBM factory. I have a question from Brian McMahon. Your comments on the seeker process are very on point. We've had two developments in our community, one that lasted 6 years in the seeker process and the developer threw his hands up and walked away. We have another one who's 9 years into the process now. He's completed seeker, but he still meets resistance from the governmental authorities on his project. Why is there not a greater focus on the detrimental effects of the seeker process on economic development?
Well, we certainly try to make it a focus. I know some of the business organizations in town do as well. I think it's more reflective of the political strength of the environmental lobby in New York State. more than anything. And I also think that we tend to focus more on, and some of this is legislative, but also some of it's regulatory. I think we tend to focus more on the legislative process than looking at what we can do through regulatory reform that doesn't require legislation.
EJ, the numbers you presented on manufacturing, I noticed the capital region was a dramatic outlier in a positive sense. And I wondered if you could, as Ken suggested, get a little more granular and tell us what sectors those are. I suspect they may be some of the government-assisted technology parks, I don't know. But if that's so, I guess that kind of gives rise to another question. So I wanted to raise that for you.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. To the extent you can get into you can break them down, if you can get more granular with the economic data themselves, they tend to suggest that a lot of that activity, not all of it, has been in the heavily government subsidized sector of the manufacturing sector in Albany. Not all of it, but a lot of it. There's also some spillover, if you'll pardon the pun, even from the yogurt expansion into which is food processing being a big and important part of manufacturing. If I can anticipate your next question, to the extent people see success, or at least see significant activity and higher employment in the early stages of the College of Nanoscience project, Semitech, and the Global Foundries chip fab plant in southern Saratoga County, which clearly in their startup stages is a lot of visible activity. It's also absolutely clear that that's not a model for all of upstate New York. You can't do that assuming it succeeds and is sustainable in the long run. It's not a model that can be replicated easily, nor some might argue should you even try to replicate it across upstate New York. Among other things, it costs billions of dollars. It's the biggest direct and indirect investment of state funds and private enterprise that's ever happened in New York. So that would be my observation on that.
I tend to agree. I guess I asked it, I was speaking with Brian McMahon earlier, because as a local official struggling to promote economic development, often we're in competition with other tech parks and with government-sponsored jobs there, and the governor has just proposed new tax-free zones, which kind of raises the question anew in a much larger way. So I wondered if any of the panelists had thoughts about that.
I'll throw out mine and then I'll invite other people to do it, which my reaction has generally been meh. I haven't been like, I think if you offer people the ability to do something somewhere and pay no taxes, something will happen in some places. So that will make a little difference in some places here and there, yes. I also would observe, however, that it's only on college campuses or on sites of up to 4 acres that somehow can be linked to a college campus. It's the furthest thing, it's highly discretionary and hence will be politicized because it involves the judgment of both the State University Board and the ESDC Board. The total land area that's being talked about for absolutely everything in this plan, statewide, and it's supposed to be mostly in upstate New York, is 4 square miles. Now, upstate New York, not counting bodies of water, is 40,000 square miles. Let's assume that 90% of it is like junk or rural or unusable. You're still talking about 4,000 square miles, 4 miles and 4,000 square miles of that, say, developed land in upstate New York. So my reaction has been not appalled that it's been proposed. It's a kind of Empire Zone on steroids, or Empire Zone on a different kind of steroid that perhaps doesn't show up in the blood test the same way. But it's not, I don't think it's a game changer.
Well,
Yeah,
New York has the, excuse me.
My initial take on tax-free New York is that I think there's a real danger of overselling it. I think using comparisons to the college nanoscale science and engineering, what's going on there, if it's attracted $14 billion of investment, is going to happen in other university campuses. It is not. And a lot of universities aren't culturally prepared to engage in corporate partnerships as they have at SUNY Albany. So I think there are I think there are going to be a lot of technical issues that are going to be identified in the next couple of weeks that are going to be significant and are going to have to be dealt with. But I also think there's got to be kind of a tamping down of what the expectations of the program are. I think it has potential. I believe strongly that the university corporate research partnerships are really important and can lead to significant economic development. But I just worry that the expectation is going to be that we're going to have a lot of SUNY Albanese around. That's not going to happen.
And if I may add to that, I think that the idea or the is good, but I think there's got to be more to it. I think that those tax breaks at the college campuses, that 4 square miles up that was going to be created upstate, that there is a limit that you would spin off, and it's got to benefit. I mean, even though these jobs that are created on those college campuses will benefit the region, but it'll have more of an impact if they're spun off through the region, as the ceramic corridor was supposed to be. And I know a lot of you were involved in economic development, and the ceramic corridor for the Southern Tier is going to be the silver bullet. The panacea was going to solve all our problems. It was going to be the next Silicon Valley, but it's going to be with the ceramic industry. Never happened because there was lack of oversight, and a lot of the people that went into the incubators when they first opened are still there. They haven't created one job. So I think we have to be more aggressive in how we implement those things. Like the Empire Zone, my good friend Fred DiMaggio is here. The Empire Zone was a great program. It really was. It was a significant economic development program that put New York on it gave them a step up in economic development. Unfortunately, the politicians got involved, and what was meant for a distressed area was supposed to benefit upstate, distressed areas upstate. Well, Saratoga County, which last time I looked isn't a distressed area. That was the major Empire Zone. Sections of Manhattan were in the Empire Zone. It was ridiculous. It was bastardized, and it just defeated the whole purpose of the Empire Zone. It was supposed to help distressed areas.
Right. New Yorkers have the highest state and local tax burden in the country, about 13%, compared with an average of about 10%. New York needs just to take a thorough look at its entire tax system, because it's losing residents, it's losing businesses to other states, and it's unsustainable. So I would say rather than these smaller tax-free zones, there should be a commission that can advise the governor and the state legislature on what kind of tax system would make the state more competitive.